If you're going to be intentional about the way that you dress, why would you not do so from head to toe? And hats are pretty prominent accessories.
Welcome back to The Materialist. I am Mark Bridge, the founder and CEO of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry. And today I have the great pleasure of sitting down with a new friend, Gigi Burris. Hello, Gigi.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we are spiritually aligned in terms of what we are doing, and so eager to learn more about you and your work and how you've gotten here. Maybe to start with, can you give us the origin story? Who is Gigi and where does she come from and what does she do?
Yes. So I'm Gigi Burris O'Hara, and I am a milliner. And so when I introduce myself at parties and say that, they're like, oh, a millionaire. I'm like, no. Hopefully one day, but no, a milliner. And a milliner is someone who makes hats. And I have a business called Gigi Burris Millinery, and we focus on hats and headwear across different genders and types of hats, straw and felt. And you can find us, we have a store in Chinatown in New York City, and then we're also at Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, Net-a-Porter. So you can discover us on our website in addition to our retail partners. And we make all of our hats in New York City.
And this is not the biggest industry in the world, and this is probably not what a lot of people do. How many milliners are there in New York?
Millinery is a pretty intimate community, and we know, a lot of us know one another, even across the globe, which makes it special. Anytime a trade can get together and form community, it's fantastic. So I love the intimate and niche nature of millinery. And I also think being a part of a niche business has really allowed my voice to get louder than it would in a crowded space. And so that's a blessing. And it can be challenging too.
And I have read that you are a lover of accessories writ large. And take us back to Gigi growing up, and what was she accessorizing, and where did the inspiration for that come from?
Yeah, I feel like the world of accessories brings so much joy. And one of the most emotive accessories, in my opinion, of course, aside from jewelry, which is extremely personal, is a hat. It can transform the way that you...
What is an accessory in your mind? How do you think about that as a category versus whatever's not an accessory?
So to me, an accessory is a non-essential. So yes, a bag is an absolutely, you need a bag to carry around your things, but jewelry, a hat, gloves, belts, brooches, I think you need a bag and shoes. So I would consider that part of a wardrobe, even though that is in the world of accessories. But to me, the most joyful accessories are the ones that are non-essential.
And were you playing with things as a kid? Where did the inspiration come from?
I was always pretty artistic. Growing up as a child, I took art classes in high school. I sewed with my grandmother, so that's where I learned to work with my hands and made outfits for dolls and Barbies. And I always loved putting things on my head and dressing from head to toe. And one of my first birthday cakes as a child, when you're old enough to remember, 5 or 6, was a hat. It was a red velvet cake. And I just remember hats being so fancy. And when I attended Parsons School of Design, whenever I would sketch my ready-to-wear, which I was studying ready-to-wear, I would add a hat as part of my mood and look. And then when they offered a millinery course, I was so excited because that's where I learned to make hats.
And did you think about that before coming to Parsons, or you thought, I'm going to be a fashion designer?
I grew up in a very small town in Central Florida, so I knew that I wanted to work in fashion, and I knew that I wanted to live in New York City. And so when I got accepted into Parsons School of Design, I was just impossibly thrilled. It was such an exciting milestone. And at the time, they really didn't have as many niche offerings as they might now. So ready-to-wear was the blanket fashion BFA. So that's what I went for. But then that at the school is where I learned the trade of millinery.
And you go off to Paris and you start discovering, oh, wait, there are people who are making wonderful things and there are all of these extraordinary ingredients. How did that bit of kismet happen?
Yeah, I think there's such an interesting mindset that Europeans have that I think that we can learn a lot from. And it's about quality, and it's about reverence, and it's about making things to last. And so when I studied there, it was really not so much about concepts as it was about construction. Who's making it, how you're making it, couture techniques. And I just really loved that mindset. And so when I was there, there's this shop that's just absolutely fantastic in the second, and it's called a mercerie, and it's got ribbons and vintage felts and just these beautiful romantic elements from a different time. And I just fell in love with that idea of millinery and the romance of it, and brought that back to New York City. And then when I eventually founded my brand, I knew that romance of craft and preservation was going to be a pillar.
And for your final work, your final presentation, whatever it is, as someone who did not go to design school, I'm out of my element here, but you presented this collection that caught the attention of the world.
It was just more than I had ever imagined. You are about to leave college, and I presented my senior thesis, which at the time was 5 or 6 ready-to-wear looks, and I did a hat with each of my ready-to-wear looks. And
you are making each of these things, is that right? You are...
Yes. Yeah, so they taught us the skills to pattern make and construct, and then I had taken the millinery course and had worked with my teacher, and so I made each item. And the hats that I made, actually, Rihanna wore one of them. And so that was just a really exciting milestone coming right out of college. Recognition. I was very blessed to go to school in New York City, and I think that there's such a community in this city of individuals that build when you're in that stage of life. And so we were going out, we were seeing each other places, and you build a community of young people. And a young gal that I knew at that stage of life was assisting a stylist, and I had a handful of friends that were assisting stylists. And so it led to some placements in Italian Vogue and Vogue Japan, and it was a really exciting time.
And when did the vision become, I'm going to do this and I'm going to start a business to do this?
When I graduated, it was the recession, so it was challenging for young people to get this degree and not immediately be hired in the field that they had gotten a degree in. And so
What is the sort of gold standard if you graduate from Parsons? Do you go off to Ralph Lauren? If you go to Wharton, you're supposed to go to Goldman Sachs, or you're supposed to go to McKinsey or whatever. What do you do? What is the expected path for a Parsons graduate?
Good question. I feel like now there's so many minors that you can focus in that the path has become much more diverse. There's a big focus on sustainability at the school. There's also a master's program that people flood into. But there's a lot of opportunity here in New York City, whether it's a larger brand like Ralph Lauren or going to support a smaller brand that produces in Midtown. Each year there's this flood of new students, and they get to enter the workforce, and the workforce is changing so much. So I feel like the gold standard's shifting quickly.
And do you learn business skills?
It's interesting that you say that. You do. I can't speak for the curriculum
did
now.
You learn business skills? I guess let's personalize this.
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to eventually start my own brand, but I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did. And business skills are something that I learned from experience versus in school. And some of the lessons had been hard, but I think it's also about following your intuition.
You make 8 hats. They show up all over the world. Are there people who come knocking at your door saying, I want that? Or do you have Japanese department stores saying, we'd like 500 of these? What happens next?
We love the Japanese stores. Of course, they're the early adopters of anything cool. So yes, our first stockist was in Japan, and that was really cool because...
Who was it?
It was called K3. I don't know if they're still around, but actually when I graduated, I wasn't focusing on building a brand full time. I was just trying to hustle and make things happen. So I was working retail, and I was also assisting as a stylist assistant. And my work as a stylist assistant actually took me to Japan for a few years. And then I actually got to see the hats in the store in Japan. So that was pretty cool.
Why does Japan get everything first? I think you said something that we would all probably nod and agree with for people who understand the landscape. But what is it? Is there something historically? Is there something culturally that...
I think there's just a hunger and appreciation for artistry that I think is really unique to their country.
So you're wearing, I was going to say you're wearing 12 hats, and then I realized just how on point that is. But you're doing all of these different things. You're trying to build up awareness. What is the moment where you say, wait, this can be a full-time job? I can build something around myself and my vision. When does that happen? Is there a moment, or is that at evolution?
That's a great question. A real milestone for me pretty early on was being part of the Vogue Fashion Fund and the support of Vogue and the support of the CFDA. And at the time, which was in 2014, I was the smallest brand that had participated. Since then, the program has gone on and they've had micro brands. But at the time, I was one of the smallest brands that had participated. I was working out of my apartment, and the judges came to my home to see my collection. And that mentorship...
Welcome to the atelier / my bedroom.
Literally. And so that mentorship from the judges and from the team of the CFDA and the team at Vogue and the exercises that program put us through really established a foundation that we have grown from. And
talk us through that. What were those things?
So at the time, and the program has evolved and shifted to the present day needs of designers now, but at the time, it was quite rigorous in the way that they challenged us to define our clients, to define our market share, to build business plans. They really examined our business sort of finances. And at a super youthful stage, we were profitable because I'm working out of my house, and every hat sold was profit because there wasn't much overhead. But
as long as you don't charge yourself for labor or occupancy,
that's
you
true.
Figure out the cost per hour, you're earning 38 cents, but
yes,
that's not a line item in your mind.
I guess another milestone was when I started to pay myself. But
it's the dream of every
right?
entrepreneur.
Yes.
You've crossed the Rubicon.
Yes, but that was a really great time. And then from that, we built a wider customer base, and we opened our first department store, which was Neiman Marcus, which we still work with now. And so it's been really fantastic that I went through a boot camp at a really young stage of my business.
Are you expanding the category? My sense is that, I don't know if lost art or dead art or what it is, but there was a time, certainly in American history, when you got dressed and you put on a hat. My sense is that is not the predominant mood today. So was it an accessories buyer at Neiman Marcus? Jewelry is a category. I always start with that because that's the thing that I know. I don't need to introduce somebody to the idea of owning a ring. You put on rings, you put on necklaces. We think you should do that more often. We think you should add to your collection. But how do customers think about it? How do buyers in retail think about it? Did you have to say, hey, give me 3 feet so that I can display some pieces?
That's a really interesting thought process, right? Because we are on the ground floor with jewelry, handbags, and sunglasses. And yes, there is a dedicated hat section in most department stores, on most online websites. And while it's a niche category, it's a really growing category. We have seen such tremendous growth from when the brand first started. And I think when you ask about expansion, what's really interesting about the millinery category that I think people don't really know is there's a lot of micro niches even within this niche category that we can further expand upon without making a entirely new product category. So some of them might be hat pins We introduced hat pins with Net-a-Porter last year, and they were so successful because there was also a big boom around the trend of brooches. You could wear it in your hat, you could wear it on your lapel, it's unisex. They sold through. People came to us in our shop. They were so excited about this new item, but it was like an accompaniment to the hats. We have unisex hats, we have bridal, we have packable. So there's a client that's like only purchasing us for their travel. We have fashion ladylike hats, we have felt hats, we have hair accessories, we have bows, we have headbands. So there really is a lot of micro niches within this niche category.
And where does the inspiration come from for adding a piece to one's collection? All right, I'm going on a trip. I don't know, I'm going to Hawaii in a couple weeks. Okay, so I'm admiring your beautiful hat and saying, oh, maybe I should have a hat for that. But I don't know, I suppose I have lots of baseball hats. It's not really any different than that. Think about accessorizing that way, but I would never think about wearing, I don't know, you probably call it a real hat.
Yeah. So we challenge our customers and soon-to-be customers and just the population in general. If you're going to be intentional about the way that you dress, why would you not do so from head to toe? And hat's a pretty prominent accessory. So if I met you and you were wearing a baseball hat, I would make some assumptions about you and the way that you're
like
presenting yourself.
Yeah.
Or it's just like casual, right? But if you came in wearing a really sharp, beautifully made hat, you would also make some assumptions about that individual. We really encourage to people that, yes, our hats are well made. They are a luxury price point, but we certainly think that they're worth the investment.
When you think back to that CFDA Vogue process and you were defining who is the customer, did you have a picture in mind?
Because of our niche category, we have a pretty diverse customer across ages and genders and place. And so what unifies everyone is confidence. You have to have confidence to enter a room in a beautifully made hat. And you have to have an appreciation for quality and appreciation for the slow romance of a beautifully handmade product.
The confidence is such an interesting thing. And one of the topics that I keep coming back to is this idea of homogeneity versus distinctiveness, or the sea of sameness or the ness. I imagine that's something that you fight as well. I feel like when people are buying fashion or they're buying accessories, I think they're trying to do one of two things. They're either trying to fit in or they're trying to stand out. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely would. And I feel like what's interesting about that is when a key player in the game, a celebrity or an influencer, wears something, we naturally see, or it's on a TV show, for example, we see an influx of sales of that product. And I think
the specific SKU.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And we love it, obviously, because it brings a new customer into the fold. And I just think that sameness can sometimes be, that's a bummer, but like when someone sees someone wearing something and it inspires them, they'll never wear it the same way as that person. So yes, sameness, I guess, maybe of the same SKU, but each person is styling it in such a unique way.
For you, where does inspiration come from? It seems like there are some models, there's some tropes, and then you're innovating. Talk us through the kind of topography of what you're playing with on a, I don't know, do you release in seasons, or what does a product year look like for you?
So we do 4 seasons, 4 deliveries, and then we also on our website or in our store, we have quite a few like little micro drops. So because we make everything in New York City, we can be really agile. So we can spot micro trends, or I can get the creative wild tear and I can react to it really fast, test it in our store, test it with our audience before we integrate it into the larger collection. So I love doing that. So I definitely would encourage people to come to our website and shop from us directly because we have different product. And we have developed pretty signature silhouettes. So those are going to be in repetition each season. And I'm really inspired by materiality. So when I approach a new collection and define the palette, what does materiality look like? We've been pretty innovative in the way that we materialize the hats, so much so that it spurred a little bit of copying. But like we have done interesting things with striping different braids, striping a braid from Switzerland with raffia. We've done some interesting
Tell me what striping means. That sounds like a term of art.
Yes. Hats can be made from a myriad of materials, but they can be made from a woven material like woven straw or felt, which is a non-woven material, but a solid material, or they can be made from a braid. So that braid could be chenille for the winter, or it could be straw for the summer. It comes on a skein like yarn, and a really talented individual sews it into the shape of the hat before it's blocked by hand. It's a super niche skill. But what we've done is we've striped that material. So we will take a raffia straw with a shiny Starbright straw, or maybe we'll even triple stripe straw, or we'll double it, and it presents itself in really interesting sort of textures and combinations.
And how do you keep coming up with newness? There's, I don't know, I was trying to count earlier how many different styles that you have on this site, but it's a lot. Are there thousands more things that are just waiting to come into the world, or do you start with a blank slate every season and go, oh my God, here we go again?
Yes. Sometimes it's challenging because as a small business owner, like what you want to do is sit there and be creative and design a new collection. And what you're actually doing is answering emails all day. But I always do try to give myself and give the brand the dedication of time when we're doing development. What's interesting is that we have a pretty significant private client business. So individuals that come to us to commission, and I really get inspired by a lot of the commissions that we get, whether it's for a private client who's attending a race, or maybe it's a private client who is an artist and they're on tour, or maybe it's a private client for, I don't know, a television show or a Broadway show or a movie. And that really challenges me to think outside of the box, because I'm working within their constraints, or to match an outfit or to match a mood. So it does keep that creative process stretching all year round. So sometimes I pull ideas from instances like that.
And what is the brief in that case? I'm like, hey, Gigi, I'm going to Ascot, and here's what I'm wearing. I need something to go along with it. Or do we start with the hat? What is the...
It's often just like that. Sometimes we love the clients that allow us to start from the head down, but typically we're matching an outfit.
How much of the business is that, I don't know if you'd call that couture or bespoke, versus the ready-to-wear piece?
Pretty significant. Each year it grows. I think there's definitely a community that grows organically through word of mouth, or we'll work with stylists who support clients that are in this need of bespoke. So I would say right now it's about 30% of our business.
And what is the vision? This feels like it's probably a teenager now in its development. What does this want to be when it grows up?
I think if we were able to get a more consistent workflow of couture commissions, it would allow me to expand my atelier, which would be amazing and like such a dream, because right now the amount that we have, the appropriate amount of individuals to support that. But if we were able to get a consistent amount of more commissions, I think it would be great for us to grow our custom atelier.
And I want to talk a little bit about production in the United States and production in New York City. How did you find originally people who could execute your vision? And was that hard? I think one of the things that I see most challenging for jewelry designers is when it goes from I make it to we make it. And some people make that transition and some people just can't. There is such a obsession with control that no one is going to do it as well as I can.
Definitely. And in jewelry, I think I don't want to say it's a problem, but I feel like it's present in jewelry, it's present in ready-to-wear, it's present in a global way, where we really are needing to support an artisan network of really talented individuals who can get enough work that they can have consistent workflow to support brands' expansion. And I am very blessed. I work with a third generation blocking factory out of Brooklyn. And I've worked with them from the very beginning of my brand, and I met them through Parsons. But millinery is very niche, right? We've established this through our conversation. So the production capacity and partners are extremely limited. Folks know one another. There's only so many places you can buy materials. There's only so many people that know how to make it. So it's actually somewhat fairly easy to identify those key players.
Is it hard to get in the door? Because that's one of the things that people starting jewelry businesses often complain about, that it is this old boys network, and unless you know the right shibboleth and spin around 3 times and touch your nose and have the 7 layers of introduction, you get ignored by factories.
Yeah. I can't speak for everyone, but I do think that when you produce in the US, there is a lower barrier for entry when it comes to production introductions, because one, you can do them in person, right? For those brands that are based in the US, you can go and introduce yourself, introduce your product. There's typically lower minimums. So you can start with a set amount of SKUs. And that's why I think it's really important that we protect the jewelry district, the diamond district, the garment center, micro hubs in Los Angeles, Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, because I think that the more tiny people that produce at that factory, the better prices there are and the more apt that they would be to take on new clients.
I think we're dancing around the sort of story of the closely crafted. Where does that come from, and where is that today, and where is that going?
So in addition to my brand, Gigi, Burris Millinery, I founded a nonprofit organization called Closely Crafted. And it's a 501(c) based in New York City, that our mission is really to inspire the next generation of artisans and creators. Because if we don't have individuals that are skilled for the next generation, there won't be small jewelry brands who are able to produce in the United States. There certainly won't be hat brands and ready-to-wear brands. To grow creatively, you have to have access to luxury production. So we as a nation, as a world, we need to create a value-based benchmark for individuals that are investing in local production, wherever that might be in the United States. That comes with a price. It's a luxury product because these individuals are working in the US. So I think that if customers can commit to that as a value-based benchmark, then we get workflow as small brands, and we can pass it on to our factories. Then that same workflow.
Tell me what a value-based benchmark is.
Value-based benchmarks can be really individual to the person. So you might say, I only want to buy from individuals that are female brand owners, or Black-owned businesses, or businesses that are based in Seattle. So each person develops their own value-based benchmark. And I think a really interesting sort of case study about value-based benchmarks is when the organic food movement happened. And it started out and it was quite expensive, and individuals were like, I don't know. Then consumers demanded organic food, and everyone reacted with even bodegas having organic food. So as a nation, if we can really say, hey, where is the product made? How is it made? Who is it made by? Then naturally that value-based benchmark will become more prominent.
Do you see that making inroads?
I believe that it is. I think it's a timely issue for a myriad of reasons, politically and with tariffs and whatnot. But I also think the younger generation is very considered in the way that they purchase. And there's a statistic that's pretty crazy that only 3% of clothing that is purchased in the U.S. is actually still made in the U.S., which is pretty alarming, I think, considering that, several decades past, that number was significantly higher. And so I think as that value-based benchmark grows, hopefully that number will grow too.
And what is the advantage of it being made in the U.S.?
So as I'm sure from interacting with all of the brands that you all support and myself as a brand owner, I think that one, it's a lower carbon footprint, and two, it's agility. Hey, that SKU's not doing well. Let's tone down the production. Hey, that SKU is doing great. Let's ramp up the production. Hey, everybody's obsessed with green right now. Have you thought about cutting that in green, like with an emerald or a green straw or green felt? I think that there's agility. You're able to grow in a sustainable, organic way because you're able to react to the ebbs and flows of the economy. You don't have to sit on a tremendous amount of inventory. So loads of advantages. And also, above all, you're supporting individuals in your local community with work.
Yeah. How do people discover you?
Hopefully they've discovered me through this podcast. But also, I think that we are really active in creating different sorts of community, whether that's on social media or through magazines or on television shows. Like recently, we were on this show called Four Seasons on Netflix.
And people see it and go, wait, what is that?
Yes. So a lot of the times that we're on television shows, we do try to support that with marketing in such a way where people can identify the hat that somebody wore, the headband that someone wore. And now, to have a small business when I started and to have a small business now, it's changed so much with the world just digitally, right? And there's such a digital touch point, and the way that we can access customers is much different now and a little easier in a digital world.
What does your team look like today? And what does a week in your life look like? What are the things that make the engine move?
Yeah. So we're a very small but mighty team based out of my atelier in Chinatown. We have a store in the front, and we have really tried to make it work for us. And the hours that work for us are Tuesday through Friday afternoons. And so I'm typically there. So if you walk into our store, I might be helping clients, measuring their heads, supporting them with custom commissions. Behind our store is the atelier. And so in the atelier, we're working on production. We're working on private client commissions, brides, veils. My shipping manager is my dog. She's amazing. We always joke that she's the shipping manager because she's barking at FedEx. And she's a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier. And then my husband, he has an exotic skins brand called Rihanna that focuses on American alligator. He has a leather atelier in the very back. So on our Chinatown floor, we are doing those three things. And in the mornings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I start my mornings at my factory, partner in Bushwick called Albrizio's, and we work on our blocking and our hats, and then we drive them to the atelier in Chinatown, and then they get trimmed up and get ready to go out. And then what I do during the day is I could work with clients, I'm answering emails, I'm taking meetings, maybe I'm going somewhere for a fitting, or just recently we did a trunk show uptown, so I made an appearance there.
And do you have specialized skills in marketing? Do you do those things in-house? We share a friend and colleague in Gabby Katz who helps us share the message of what it is that we're doing. But what is the activity?
Yes. So Gabby is absolutely amazing at building community. And I think when you build organic community, then they stick around and they like to grow with you. We are really organic in the way that we try to connect with individuals. We perform really well when we show videos of us making things, which is always fun. I really have an admiration for content creators because that's just not a natural knack for me. I'm more of like a hands-on person when it comes to making an object versus making content.
You're an object creator.
Yes. So that isn't something that comes naturally to me. So my team's always like, why don't you take a picture of that? Why don't you do this? But I don't know. I guess maybe when I was coming up and I was groomed like staying in the moment versus capturing it on Instagram. So I think we could improve upon that.
I'm interested to explore that because there is this, idea that brand founders are the face and then they need to be the voice and the cinematographer and all of these things. Your business is Gigi Burris. You are Gigi Burris. And then you're also saying, but I want to be making hats. I don't want to be making videos. Does that feel at odds sometimes?
Yeah, it does. It's a pretty intimate thing to have to put yourself out there every day, in addition to having to put your product out there every day. You're pretty vulnerable. So by nature, that doesn't always happen for me. So yeah, it's a delicate balance.
When you think about expansion, do you ever think about bringing on partners?
What's really unique about millinery and the niche category that we know that it is, the partnerships that we can establish are really unique and special. So partnerships can look like doing the runway hats for a brand that maybe doesn't have an in-house millinery partner or capacity to produce. And then with other brands, so we've done a partnership with the Ritz-Carlton in Hawaii, and we made hats for people to wear at the poolside of the hotel. We've done collaboration just recently for the Kentucky Derby with Woodford Reserve, which was so fantastic.
Natural partnership.
Very much. And we do try to be quite strategic that it has to be a natural, organic partnership with like-minded values. But because we are such a niche category, it's lending itself to some really interesting partnerships.
And they help you amplify, they help you expand the story.
Yeah, it's a myriad of things, right? We get a brand new audience that becomes familiar with Gigi Burris. We get to bring our creativity to their world as well. And whatever comes out is typically pretty unique and is hopefully an interesting blend of both perspectives.
Tell us about your personal style.
I'm pretty much in all black all the time. I'm wearing all black today, even in the summertime. And so my style is a little more understated.
Is that a New York thing, or that's because I want to pay attention to your hat?
I guess both. Definitely a New York thing. But I never leave the house without a hat or a hair accessory. So I'm always repping in one way or the other.
Stay on brand.
Yes. Always. So you'll never find me without something on my head. So I guess it's really dressing from the top down most of the time.
And what is your relationship with jewelry?
I'm actually don't do a lot of jewelry. I was thinking about it when I was coming to meet you. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even have any jewelry on. Pretty personal jewelry, so sticking pretty minimal. One, because I'm pretty much working with my hands all the time. So things can catch, especially like when we're working with delicate material. And then also sometimes jewelry can really complement a hat, and then sometimes it can be too much. So it just depends on the hat that I'm wearing, but that always takes precedent.
So tell us about you have 2 rings I see
Yep.
that you're wearing. Tell us about what you're wearing.
My ring here is my wedding band, and it's made by Ava Farron. So Ava Farron produces in New York City, and she's part of our closely crafted community, and we actually did the Vogue Fashion Fund together. And so this is also Ava Farron. It's one of her little claw rings, and my favorite is rose gold. So even though I'm always in black, I'm a little girly when it comes to gold choice. And then I guess my other favorites, I love Lizzie Fortunato because they make locally.
And just happen to be wonderful people.
They're so great. And the 3 of us, the twins and I, have really come up together over the past 10 years. And so our first studios were right next to each other on Stanton Street. We had the same landlord. Our second studios
They told me something about rats in that building.
Oh, yeah. Rats are always everywhere present in New York City. And then we both moved, and we separately moved into buildings that also had the same landlord. And so it's nice to have business owner girlfriends that you can also bounce ideas off of.
And also, they very much are about, we are building intentionally, and
Very
we
much so.
want a business that is going to last based on our values, and we're going to do it our way, and we have the luxury of doing that. Mm-hmm. What a nice thing that is.
Absolutely.
Are there other makers, brands, artists, people in the world who deserve more attention?
Definitely. I think that the way that a lot of individuals approach the way that they consume here in the United States is based on immediacy and price point. And so I think that if you can pause and be a little more considered, even if you're buying secondhand from websites or thrifting, just making sure that like what you're purchasing, it is made by someone. Everything ever is made by someone. Did that person have good working conditions? Where was that person? Really just to be considered. And then naturally, I think small makers will get more attention because that value-based benchmark is going to rise.
Who should people know that they don't know about? Are there people in your closely crafted community that you want to wave the flag for?
So I definitely want to plug my husband. His brand is called Rihanna, and he has a really interesting supply chain where he's taking the remnant skins from the meat industry in exotic skins with focus on American alligator. So he's doing small leather goods that are really special. He actually did a custom watch roll in alligator. That's really jewelry boxes. There's an amazing...
And he's making it in the back of the bag.
Yes. He's making it in Chinatown. He also has a few factory partners in the garment center. And then there's an amazing individual. She has a brand. Her name's Erin. She has a brand called Underwater Weaving. And it's all handmade baskets. And she learned basket weaving from her mother. And it's a really wonderful example of intergenerational skills being passed down. And then, of course, we all love Ashley from Don't Let Disco. She's doing really interesting demi-fine beading work. So I absolutely love her pieces. And I really love the brand Hunting Season. They have really interesting raffia handbags. I just got myself one. They don't produce in the U.S. They actually produce in Colombia, but it's a lot of female artisan collectives. So that's a pretty cool brand that's on my radar too.
How do people discover these brands if they are not deeply enmeshed in this world? When we see the continuing consolidation in retail, and we've seen that Neiman's and Saks all got wrapped up, and there are fewer and fewer places to find things and more things on Amazon. How do you find the good stuff?
Yeah. What is the biggest deficit that we all have? Time, right? And time, it takes time sometimes. You have to be curious. Going in a wormhole on Instagram can sometimes yield, or Etsy or Substacks are such a great point of discovery, at least for me. One of my favorite ones is Jess's podcast, The Love List, or Jaleel has an amazing podcast, Substack. So I think podcasts and Substacks can be really great places, but you have to take time and be curious.
And most people don't have a lot of time, and the objects are functional. Okay, it does a thing. Is it really just an artifact of abundance of time and resources that we get to play in these things?
It's really wonderful what you guys are doing on the site, that you have such a curated edit for individuals. So I also think more micro places of discovery with a smaller edit of very intentional brands are going to continue to rise to the top. And it maybe not replacing Net-a-Porter, but people want that when they're shopping. Small multi-brand stores in sort of local communities as well.
Yeah. What's next?
What is next today is that I have a lot of brides that have been put on the back burner because we had a big event for Closely Crafted last week. So we're going to tend to them. And then,
getting to bridal season here.
Yes, it's going to be bridal season. We have Ascot coming up. So we're working on a lot of private clients with that. And then we're entering into summer. So summer's a very big season for us. It's a functional client who loves sun protection. So we're going to ramp up on that.
I think I need a hat. What kind of hat should I get?
You should come first to our store and get measured.
Yep.
And then try on a couple things. But I think that it would be nice for you to have a brim, especially if you travel.
And can it get smushed?
We have a whole packable line.
Excellent.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
If people want to find you in the actual world, we know you're in Chinatown. Where are you in Chinatown?
So we're on Pell Street between Mott and Bowery. It's a really cool little micro neighborhood of Chinatown that's very idyllic. When people come and visit us, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. Really cute little street with Chinese lanterns. And then I'm on Instagram at Gigi Burris.
Excellent. And any of the other things? Are you substacking or?
I let the professionals do that. I have a website, gigiburris.com. And of course, you should definitely follow my dog at Brooklyn Beau because she's the shipping manager and she'll share the behind the scenes stories.
That's where all the action is. If you want to know what's the latest, then talk with her.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for being here. That's it for this episode of The Materialist. If you like what you heard, please like, rate, and subscribe to The Materialist wherever you get your podcasts. The Materialist is a presentation of At Present Matchmaker to Extraordinary Jewelry. We'll see you next time.